At times you get into a contract hoping that the party you contracted with is going to do their part in the contract, and then they don't do it. So in this case, what are you going to do? Well, your options at that point are going to be among the following: refusing further performance of the contract, to bring an action for damages, to sue on a quantum merit, to sue for specific performance. In this video, we are going to focus on damages, specifically how are they calculated. So in short, if you sue for damages, how exactly is that going to be calculated? So let's talk about that. The first thing we need to start by is defining damages. So what are damages? Damages generally mean money awarded to a party who has suffered a loss or injury as a result of breach of a contract by the other party. Now you need to distinguish damages from fine. The difference is the intention, okay? Damages are intended to compensate the injured, or rather the aggrieved party in the contract. A fine, on the other hand, is intended to punish a given party. The difference can come out this way. Let's say you're supplying milk and a liter probably costs like 50 shillings or something. And then you have a clause in that contract which says that if you fail to supply milk on a given day, or if you supply milk and the other party fails to pay you on whatever, the full point is, if there is a breach of that contract on that given day, the party who breaches the contract will pay the other party 50,000. And if you look at that, okay, the amount of milk per liter is 50. Let's say you're supplying a liter and then you fail and this party wants you to pay 50,000. So 50,000 in that case is not really, you're not compensating them. It's actually going to hurt you. So 50,000 becomes a fine. So the first thing you need to understand is the difference between damages and fine. And the difference often is what is going to create, it's going to be very important in that contract. So in this case, we're talking about damages and not fine. We're talking about the monetary compensation that is awarded to the other party, okay, by the party who's breached the contract as a form of compensation for the breach. So how do we calculate these? Now let's start with the first one. Number one, loss of bargain. So in this case, the court is just going to assume, or rather to look at the amount you're supposed to pay them, okay, for the loss they incurred because you did not do the contract. So if you contract with somebody to perform something, then the question is, how much do they lose as a result of your failure to perform that thing? And that is what you pay them. Of course, the other version of this is if you perform that thing in a defective manner. So the defect, how much will it cost them? And that is what you pay them. And of course, there are problems. Okay, you could say, what if the defect is, what if the defect is too much as opposed to the actual price of that contract? So if a job is done, the court can settle for the value difference between what you contracted for and what you got. And in this case, this is referred to as diminution in value. So that is the first rule. You sort of look at how much loss you incurred, and then that is what the party pays you. Number two, the difference in value approach. So this one is mostly seen in sale of goods contract. Okay, first of all, if you don't understand sale of goods contract, there's a link in the video description that will take you to one of my courses on sale of goods contract. But the idea here is, if a seller supplies something to the buyer and the buyer fails to pay that thing, so for that thing, so what the seller is actually suing for here is the amount of loss they incur, okay, given the contract value versus the market value. Okay, in short, if you supply a laptop, that's what you're dealing with, okay, and the laptop costs, I don't know, $200 or whatever it is, okay, let's say the laptop costs 20,000 shillings or whatever it is, okay. That is the price of the laptop in that contract. And then you supply the laptop and this person doesn't pay. And so the price of the laptop drops in the market on that delivery day to 15,000, which means if you have to sell it to somebody else, you're going to incur a loss of 5,000. So you are suing that person so that they can pay you for that loss that you incur if you sold that laptop to somebody else as a result of their breach in that contract. The same can be said about the buyer's case. If the buyer expects the supplier to supply the laptop on that given day, the supplier doesn't do so, the price has gone up in the market, now the buyer has to buy it at an expensive price as opposed to what they had contracted for. The seller In this case, the seller is going to pay the buyer the difference. So that is what this is all about. That is what this point is all about. So you are going to you're going to pay for that. Now, number 3, the plaintiff is not to be compensated for more than his or her true loss. Remember, the idea here is to compensate. The idea is not to sort of make you, richer than what you're supposed to be had the contract gone through. In fact, in order to understand this, let's look at this case. G, a civil engineer, was injured in a railway accident for which the British Transport Commission accepted the liability. The damage for earnings, actual and prospective, were agreed to be £37,720. But if income tax, surtax, to which G was liable, were to be taken into account, it would reduce the amount to £6,695. So it was held that it would be unrealistic to ignore the tax element. If the tax liability were not taken into account, G would receive more than he had lost. Consequently, the company had to only pay the lower amount, which means the company actually paid the amount that was after tax. Okay? Now, number 4, the damages must be for losses that were reasonably foreseeable when the contract was made, as liable to result from breach of contract. Now, this is important, okay? Because the idea is, there are things in a contract which manifest themselves as frustration or the force majeure, things that you can't foresee. Now, you really don't want to make those ones to become part of damages. In fact, to understand this point, let's look at another case. So let's look at the case of Victoria Laundry v. Newman Industries, 1949. V bought a boiler from N to use in his laundry. Delivery was to be made on June 5th, but was not made until November 8th. V claimed, number 1, losses of the profits the laundry would have made had the boiler been delivered in time, and number 2, losses of profit from some highly profitable dyeing contracts. So the court held, first, the laundry profit were recoverable, as N must have contemplated their loss if there was delay. But, number 2, regarding the loss of the dyeing contract, the loss on dyeing contract, which could not have been contemplated, could not be recovered. So you see, the point there is that when it comes to damages, you're talking about what exactly can we foresee and what can we not foresee. It sort of doesn't make sense to start telling people to pay for things they couldn't have foreseen when they're getting into that contract. So the rule there is simple. If you can't foresee it, why are you even paying for it? Now, number 5, if the loss doesn't naturally arise from the breach, and yet such loss may be supposed to have been in contemplation of both parties at the time they contracted, as the probable result of the breach of it, the injured party may recover. So as part of managing contractual risks, remember, there are times when you could have unusual losses or unusual damages. So if you declare them in a contract, then they become part of the damages that you can sue for and recover in that contract. So this becomes part of the prospective liability in a contract. So it helps you to manage contractual risks. The 6th thing that you need to factor in when you're calculating damages is the breach of the contract must be the proximate cause of the loss or damages. So that is easy. If the loss in a contract is as a result of negligence, yeah, you can't, that's a problem, okay? You're the one who's negligent. So you're not going to be bothering the other party to pay for something that you did, which a reasonable person will not do, or something that you did not do, which a reasonable person would have done, since that is what the definition of negligence is. Now, the 7th thing, which is actually the last thing, you have a duty to mitigate the loss. Look, the fact that a loss has occurred in a contract doesn't mean that you let it continue so that the other party can pay you more. If you do that, then you're also a party to that loss. Think of it this way, okay? If you have a security guard and their job is to, well, it's a security guard, right? And then somebody tells you that your guard is often sleeping at night, they aren't doing their job. And so you take it upon yourself to investigate the case. You go there, you find them sleeping. Rather than waking them up, you take some pictures so that the next day you can show them that they were sleeping on the job. So you took pictures. On your way to home, someone actually breaks into your store and robs it. Now, the problem is you knew they were sleeping and you walked away. So if you look at it in terms of negligence, you also contributed to whatever occurred. So that's part of the contributory negligence. So in as much as the guard is liable, you are just as equally, liable. So the rule is, first of all, stop the loss and then sue the other party. Okay? Now, in conclusion, is what we've said. If you're going to sue for damages, the court can look at a number of ways to calculate the damages. So the things that are going to factor in this case will include, has the claimant suffered any loss? Is the loss suffered actionable? Did the breach of contract cause the loss? Was the type of loss reasonably foreseeable? Did the claimant mitigate the loss? And did the claimant contribute to the loss? Up to there, if you have any question, do let me know. I'm Moses from Zerite Network, and I'll see you in the next video.